It's an emergency! After a year and a half elected with a low voter turnout, French President Emmanuel Macron's policies dismantled many public structures, turning them over to private corporations, therefore creating more profits for the rich and less benefits for everyone else. On November 17, 2018, a call to peacefully protest was made, and to the surprise of the protesters themselves, tens of thousands of people went to the Paris streets to protest the hike in the diesel tax, which was the trigger event, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. It is really a protest against the growing wealth inequality that had been developing over time. Since November, there have been hundreds of marches and protests in cities and towns organized on the weekends all around the country, and the Yellow Vest movement itself has expanded across Europe and even into Australia, Canada, Taiwan, and now the United States. There could be much more that we just don't even know about yet. In late January, the National Assembly of France, supported by the Senate there, passed the bill called the Anti-Breaker. As activist Roman Light said to a crowd in the city of Pau in the south of France, quote, to criminalize the right to demonstrate or at least to dissuade us by threatening us. He also said, this is an extremely serious infringement of one of our most cherished constitutional rights, which is our freedom to act. This decision is a historical moment because of its gravity when the representatives of the people try to stop the people to speak or to act. These same representatives instantly lose their legitimacy. By attacking the source of their power, us, they are weakening theirs. The representative is the one who is present in the place of the other, so he has no vocation to tell us what to do or what to think. He is the messenger of the people and the guarantor of the trust of the people. For too long, the people forgave their representatives for their errors and failings, sometimes by complacency, sometimes by laziness, sometimes by naivete. But now is the time to take back what belongs to us, our freedom to act, end quote. The primary focus with the growing number of people in France is the RIC. R-I-C stands for Referendum Initiated by the Citizens, which is the referendum idea itself. The term referendum is used across Europe and British Commonwealth countries to describe the legal constitutional mechanism that allows the people to create petitions on issues so that the majority votes on issues will be a more truly participatory kind of democracy. I'm going to be talking with Norm Davis about the Gilets jaunes movement, the Yellow Vests en anglais, and what we can do here in the USA with the constitutional process, referendums, proposals, measures, or something else. First of all, from the standpoint of French activist, organizer, and father Roman Light, who talks about RIC, Referendum Initiated by the Citizens, when I spoke to him in December 2018 from France. Referendum initiative.
Initiated by the citizens.
So exactly, explain to us how that started and actually what that is.
So, like in simple term, it's called a RIC, R-I-C, so Referendum Initiated by the Citizens. It's a terminology that already exists in many places in the world. Like in Australia, they call it the CIR, Citizen Initiated Referendum. There's many expression of it in many countries. I think even in California and in America, they have a form of a referendum, but it's not exactly like the core essence of the RIC is the capacity from citizens to trigger national referendum from their own initiatives. So that's that simple idea. So referendum is when you ask the rest of the population to vote for an idea. So normally we are electing people to make decisions on our behalf, but what is new with this idea is that we can keep people in power, like they can actually be elected and they can keep their seat and be parliament or senators or whatever. But we want to have the power, the constitutional power to express our opinion, not in a peaceful and protesting way, but to impose that legally to the power in place. So like so far, the only people upset or disagreeing with this idea are people who think that people will be stupid enough to make stupid things. But the truth is that we all have common sense. Why? Because normal people are directly exposed to the mistakes that they're doing. And when they do something stupid, they get consequences and they learn from that perspectives. But when we're starting to study how the elite is operating, like the elites are doing really stupid things, but they don't learn about it because they have nothing to lose, because it's always the population which is paying for them. And this is actually defining a psychotic behavior. Like a psychopath is someone that basically is doing the same mistake over and over and over and over again and never learn from it because they never really get to face the consequences of its action. And this is what is creating that sensation of impunity that this elite is getting through, and never really learn anything because they never face the consequences of that. Like the only thing that they're facing is, oh, we're not going to be re-elected. Like after years and years and years, and now they're getting into a point where whoever is not re-electing, they're going to find ways to recycle them into whatever businesses in the private and in the public. So those people are really starting to create that kind of caste that is controlling the whole system. And we haven't yet realized that the only reason why those people are proliferating is only because we are powerless. We cannot stop them legally. Like, and that's such a simple statement to realize. Like the whole idea of the RIC is realizing that we have been programmed to be powerless constitutionally. The fact that in the constitution, we, the people, doesn't have a legal tool to stop the people in power, to control them if we want to, is the reason why no matter what we're going to do in the street, no matter how the Occupy, for example, movements were programmed to fail, is that they didn't make this analysis that if you're not changing the constitution and give the people the right, the legal right to trigger a national referendum, then you will be condemned to be controlled by the people who just going to tell you what you have to do and what is good for you. And that's what the RIC is about. The RIC is about realizing that simple idea that we have been programmed to be powerless, not because we are powerless, because we are the power. We are the true power. The power doesn't come from the elite. The elite most of them couldn't even cook an egg, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
The true power is coming from us. We are the people making the value, creating exchange, producing value. And the fact that we do not have our word to say except going through our representative says a lot about what we can do.
All right. Hello, this is Niswander. You're watching the Nowman Show. As you can see from that intro, that's one of the things, if not the main thing we're going to be talking about today. And my guest is Norman Davis, coming back to the Nowman Show from the show Truth Noir. Thank you for coming back, Norm.
It's always a pleasure, man. Thanks.
Likewise. Of course, we got a lot to get into, so let's talk about this.
Yeah, man.
Yellow vest is, as you can see, I've got mine on.
Yeah, you know, I wear mine on my heart. You know,
I was going to say, where's yours?
It keeps the police from messing with me as much.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. But you know, this is the workers, though. This is the sign of the working class. I mean, you see it everywhere. You know, everywhere. You see it at the metro stations. You see it at construction sites. You see, you know, city workers that that have to do things outside.
Well, so. and you see homeless people that have nothing more than a bicycle to their name and maybe what they can carry on their back, wearing these because they want to be seen in the streets so that cars don't hit them. Like This is a fairly universal thing from the bottom up to the higher end working class people. I mean, there's it's a powerful statement when people take this up to protest their government instead of just wearing it to perform their job or whatever practical things they're trying to do in their life.
Exactly, and 99% plus of the people are peaceful, and they're just marching. So, of course, you know, that kind of stuff's kind of boring to watch on TV.
Right.
But some, I mean, if you look at the right outlets online or whatever, you will see the behind the scenes, what's really going on, where the majority of the people actually are, just marching peacefully and to make a statement with all these yellow, you know, thousands of yellow vests, you know.
Yeah.
And it's all across the country. So one of the things I liked about, you know, connecting with Roman Light was he points out the emphasis of the referendum. And he said, you know, one of the things that he does when he goes out and marches is that if you write RIC, RIC on the back of the vest, you see it? See it? Okay. You write RIC on the back of the vest, then that's the people that you want to look for. Okay. You know what I mean? Because, you know, they're not just there because of a specific issue, whatever that might be, which is all important. It's just that if you want to talk to somebody who understands that we don't have the power, and if you want to change all these issues, you got to have the power. So we need something, you know, that is already in the Constitution to use, right, to let our representatives know that we truly want to have participatory democracy, which means if we feel strongly about a particular issue, we want to have a referendum and vote on it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it isn't just saying, you know, that I'm, you know, pro-immigration or anti-immigration, or, you know, it isn't about, you know, any of these issues yet.
Overall, we should be able to propose an idea,
right,
and have it voted on within the year,
right,
or something,
or less. You know what I mean? No, in Switzerland, it's less than that. You know, so, and if you don't like the outcome, you know, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is that, you know, we discussed that, you know, let's say you have 70% of the registered voters have to vote on whatever this issue is. Or you have to get 70% of people's signatures, or no, 1%, because that's what they do in Switzerland. I think you get 1% of the citizens' signatures.
For like a petition, or
on a petition, or something like that, right? And then that goes to a national vote, right? And then it's 70% of the registered voters have to vote on it, you know. And then let's say it's a question like, let's do with one that's here, Green New Deal. Do you want the Green New Deal, right? And you can look at the legislation right online right now, recently proposed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her co-signers. You can look at that right now. Ocasio-Cortez, I think, congress.gov, and you can find that. So say you review that. You take the time to review the whole thing, right? And then you have a referendum that says, okay, the question is yes, no, or I don't know. So let's say 70% of the registered voters vote on it, and there's 30 to 40% of the people say, well, I don't know. I read it all, I don't know. Well, that means you don't have a conclusion, right? So right. you have to go back and you know, maybe Ocasio-Cortez and others would go back and they would redo something, right? Then they would put it out for a vote to the people again. Then once you get that, you know, majority, then it becomes law.
Yeah.
That's what participatory democracy should be. So that's what he's talking about. That's an example of what he's talking about, right? So I guess there's so much that we can get into, and we're going to do an extended segment as well. But I wanted to show another clip of what I feel that, you know, my focus is, and I think it's his focus too as well. Even before you get to the law, you have to just basically care about people. Period.
It helps, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not?
So this clip, and then we can get into more conversation.
Sure.
Is really basically about compassion. This is Roman Light and I talking about compassion. I concur with you on the right-left thing. It's so much more fundamental than that. I think we really need to focus on compassion and just the whole of our global society. But when you have a lot of people who don't understand basic compassion and what that means, just that basic common sense understandings we've talked about, and you put them in the democratic process, it's not going to work, right? There has to be, people have to understand compassion and feel compassion and put compassion ahead of everything else. Then I think democracy can work, right? Once people are educated about the issues.
And just on the topic about compassion, I don't think compassion is something that can be taught. Like, it's something that life is teaching you. Like, it cannot be taught at school. I don't think the fact that people will make decisions based on selfishness and stuff like that will actually make any difference, because the RIC is a process. It is the same process that we all been through when we had to leave the house and stop believing that the parents which are there to take care of us have all the answers about what is good for us. Like, you know, we had to make that decision ourselves, leave that place that we call home, because like those parents were doing this for our own good. They were there to educate us and give us what we need to hear and what we need to do. But until we make that decision to get that power back and make that decision on our own behalf, then those people will not give it back to us. So it's time for us to rise as an adult and becoming politically powerful and becoming capable of making our own decisions and learn from the mistakes we're going to make, because we're not all wise and we are all making mistakes every day. And it's the only process that nature put in place to teach us how to grow. So let's make mistakes as quick as possible. Let's learn from those mistakes, and let's learn that compassion is the way, because you cannot force people to believe that. They will have to learn from themselves. Like all the people who tell me, like, why are you not using your guns and shoot the cops who are beating you up? And like, you know what? Because those people are parents like us. They're moms and dads, and they have their own problem, and they have their own issue, and they have their family to feed, and they have their stress, and they have their things to do. So they are not the problem. Like, the problem is the fact that we are all powerless. It's not the military, it's not the economy, it's not the climate, it's not the rich, it's not the poor, it's not the left, the right, or whatever, the religion. It's the fact that we are all powerless. And until people will get that power back, and I'm saying back, like we never had that power, but until the people will get this power, they will remain divided, weak, and inefficient. So the whole idea is not about being perfect and wise straight away. The whole idea is to be willing to grow and come from that teenage space into this adult space and learn, because life is all about that. It's all about making experience, learning, and readjusting.
All right. So basically bringing it down to the most fundamental thing, and that is, caring about each other, right? Because it started on the wealth inequality thing, which people began to see more and more clearly. But there's all these other issues too, that are important. But we can change all these things and have real participatory democracy with, a referendum or with, something of that equivalent.
Yeah.
So, because, everybody in France is required to have a yellow vest in their car. So it was really easy to say, just go to your car, get your yellow vest, and we'll see you on the Champs-Élysées or whatever,
Yeah, we'll see you on the streets.
Yeah.
Well, and it was one of those things that I think people, and especially in America, this is true, like to make fun of the French as being weak, and as the Simpsons line so famously said, you guys are, I think it was Willie the groundskeeper called them a bunch of like cheese-eating surrender monkeys or something like that. And it made me laugh as a kid. But it wasn't until you start kind of becoming aware of things, and outside of your history book in school that mentions that the French helped us win the Revolutionary War, it into modern times, like the French Revolution happened, and since then they have taken to the streets every time something has happened that they don't agree with in their government, and they've shut down the government, and they've had labor strikes, and they have now recently been and by their own choice, right, have been a fairly disarmed people for quite a while now, and have still found a way to give their government a hard time by mobilizing in the streets without violence, without the ability to overtake their government by force of arms or whatever, because they don't have guns.
That's right.
Just by being out there in the streets protesting and shutting down their government. And I think it is a huge fallacy on the part of Americans who are like, oh, you know, if we had to save the French in World War II. And like another joke I've heard is that like as soon as a French child learns to speak, they learn how to say I surrender in 5 different languages.
Oh yeah.
It's nonsense, and it is, I think, it's like a bully tactic by a group of people who have been unable to accomplish anything in their own government for a while, which is the situation with us here in America. Like, it's just...
And all over the world.
Yeah, there's
really
a lot of countries going downhill, and maybe they say the same things about the French. I don't know. But I've come to respect them quite a bit for their resolve over and it's not just recently, it's in the recent decades that I've been paying attention, that it's like, no, you guys are out in the streets throwing batteries at your public officials and making your presence known that you're not happy with this.
And they do things like
demanding change.
They have these garbage machines or whatever they are that shot out cow dung, and they
yeah.
Have you seen that?
Oh, so good.
There's that's the French, right? They want to make a message, but that's their what's been understood, is that peaceful protest. You can be creative with it, right? And so, yeah,
it's pretty creative.
It's pretty creative. I have to, say that's very interesting. You also go back to Moliere. I think they get the sense of humor from him,
right?
Apparently, but what's going on now with the yellow vest is that most of the violence is being committed by the police, or the gendarme, as they say in French.
Yeah, the agents provocateurs.
And of course, in the interview, if you watch the whole thing, you'll see, we go into detail about, how it began and the illusions that are created by the mainstream media as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And we still may not have received everything yet, all the information of what's really going on. But with, thanks to, social media, we see a lot more.
Right.
You know what I mean, than what we used to. So in modern times, we are, I think we're in a revolutionary era. I think when I first walked into City Hall of Occupy LA in early October of 2011, that was I still flash back to that moment when I had this feeling. I'm looking around all these tents. This is the beginning of a revolutionary era. That was the first thought that came to my mind, and I didn't think I was going to be seeing this in my lifetime. And now here we are in 2018, 2019, and we're seeing it go further. So,
absolutely.
Then there is now a growing interest here in Los Angeles, and of course, here is the first kind of flyer that's been done. And generally what it does, it focuses on the issues.
This looks like some kind of Green New Deal.
Yeah, Green New Deal is a part of it. Housing is a human right, public banking, health care for all, power to public schools, immigration reform, prison and criminal justice reform. And that's how it started, right? And
yeah.
So, I'm trying to do what I can to educate people also about, the constitutional citizens' democracy. How do you actually change things using constitutionally what we should be able to be doing in the first place? Why are we not able to do this?
Yeah, a lot
why
of
do we
stuff
have
is already on the
representatives that
books.
aren't really representing us?
Right.
In other words, and we need, and people are too maybe complacent, about the situation, and it's time to not be so complacent anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and there's also, of course, the Green New Deal, which is now finally starting to get some traction as well because of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who is a freshman congresswoman from Long Island, New York, who is amazing.
Yeah, she is.
And it's just amazing what she's been able to do in just we're just barely
Just
into February.
Yeah, a couple months now.
It's unbelievable, the attention, and there's others too. I don't want to, marginalize, or seem to marginalize.
Well, there was a
anyone else,
huge
but-
influx of freshmen,
Right. It's that whole group.
House members that are. There's more females than ever before, right? There's more immigrants and religious non-Christians than ever before.
Right, and also there's a bisexual, I think.
Right.
And,
yeah.
So it's just these women are going to change.
And among them, people that have insisted on taking their oaths on books of law rather than holy books.
That's right. Exactly.
Which I think is, not to say that I don't appreciate the teachings of Jesus, but
right.
I think if you are taking your oath on a book of law, that says a lot more about your willingness to represent everyone in this country, regardless of their faith.
That's right. Or anything else. I
Yeah.
mean, as far as that goes. I mean, that's why we can go down all of the social justice issues, and say that it applies to everyone. Everybody should be equal. Period.
Yeah.
And then we'll work on how we can constitutionally make the changes, and referendum makes sense. So here in California, we have propositions for the state, we have measures for the cities. We almost got a public bank in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Measure B it was called, and it got 43% of the votes from people that went out to vote in the city of Los Angeles. So that's part of the Green New Deal, which we can talk about in the continuing part on YouTube. And so what's amazing about the referendum is that it definitely says to the representatives, you have to do what the majority actually says. We're giving you an actual document that we're voting on, and the majority says yes or no. This is a statement to you. You have to be accountable.
Yeah, it's like a modern day Magna Carta.
So do you have any closing thoughts for the moment?
Yeah, man, like stop making fun of the people that are out there trying to demonstrate and accomplish something for themselves. Like these old arguments and poking fun at people that live thousands of miles away from you that you've never met, and then you don't read the history on them. Watch what they're doing and watch what they're trying to accomplish, and if any of that stuff resonates with you, take it to heart and stop being dismissive of other people's struggles, because at the end of the day, those struggles are yours as well. Like the same police officers that are beating on those protesters are the same police officers that are going to be beating on you when the thing comes up that you should be protesting about and that you will be trying to accomplish for yourself one day. And they're the ones that are not on your side. They're going to be doing the orders of the people who are your enemies. And all of this like thin blue line, like I support the police, but I also love my guns. That thin blue line is what's going to be taking your guns away whenever they're ordered to.
But at the same time, some of those people in those uniforms, they
Some
have
of them took
families
their-
and children too, and that's where a lot of the connections are being made. With bringing the right and the left together.
I've seen some of those videos too, where those police officers have taken their helmets off and stood with those people.
Yep.
So, I mean, there is that too. I think it should happen more.
And it will be continued. This is just the beginning to give you the intro of Yellow Vest. It's ongoing. And this is Niswander here with Norm Davis from the Truth Noir Show. And be present in the moment, always.
Yeah.